All righty, I'm gonna say welcome everyone to our Q2 client webinar on managing your money and business during COVID-19. I am Jared Rogers. I will be your host for the next hour. A little bit of housekeeping before we go ahead and we get started. Everyone on the call is currently muted. If you want, you can click your little video thing and hide your video if you want. But during the first section of the presentation, everybody will remain muted, and we're just going to go through basically like a little Q&A type of session that was actually a result of a different webinar that I was invited to participate in. It was a health and wellness webinar in which I talked about the money aspect of it. So we'll follow that format. That's going to be roughly about 30 minutes, give or take, how much Jared actually talks. And then we'll move into the last half of it, which will actually be the Q&A session of it. You'll be able to go ahead and type your question into the chat. Everybody should see, if you hover on your screen by your controls, a little chat bubble section. You'll be able to type something in there. You can type it to me if you don't want everybody to see your question and know that you were the one that sent it. But you can type your questions in there, and then what I'll do is I'll do my best to answer those. So without further ado, let's go right ahead and get started. So all of you all on this webinar right now are clients, so you know who we are. However, this webinar is being recorded for purposes of delivering it to those who either missed it or who have to jump off because you need to go and do something else. But we're recording it, and for those who are attending later, or maybe who have shared this or being invited to see this, then we will we want to explain a little bit of who we are. Okay, so once again, I'm Jared Rogers, President and CEO of Wilson Rogers and Company. Wilson Rogers and Company was founded in September of 2005 here in Chicago, Illinois, and we began our operations in 2006. We service businesses and individuals in the areas of tax, accounting, ancillary services, and IRS debt representation. In 2011, we expanded our presence and we opened our first retail office right here in the Beverly Hills neighborhood of Chicago. The company is founded by real people. It's family owned, founded by myself, Jared Rogers, and my wife, Aranita Rogers, who at the time that we were founded was Wilson, okay? I serve as the Chief Executive Officer. I'm an experienced corporate finance professional with over 20 years worth of experience. I do hold the designation of a Certified Public Accountant, CPA, and I am licensed in the state of Illinois. I hold a BS in accounting and an MBA in managerial finance, and I am an affiliate member of the Chicago Association of Realtors, CAR. My wife, she serves as the Chief Operating Officer. She's an experienced human resource professional with over 24 years of experience within the retail and the corporate sectors. She holds the Senior Professional in Human Resources, or the SPHR designation, and she holds a BS in Business and an MBA in Finance. And like I said, she is the Wilson. So the company was founded in 2005 before we were married. So it was named after both of our last names, Wilson and Rogers, which is how you get Wilson Rogers. And it's a running joke amongst some of our clients because sometimes they'll go, where's Wilson at? And we have desk here in the office, and people will say, does Wilson sit there? And we all laugh and we go, Wilson is the most lazy, he's the laziest employee in the world because he's never here, he never shows up, and he never does anything. So that's a little bit about who we are, real briefly, with regards to services. We offer services within the areas of tax preparation to individuals and small businesses. Specialization is provided in residential real estate, rental real estate, stock investments, and then from an entity standpoint, those that are organized as S Corps, LLCs, and partnerships. We offer business ancillary services, which is everything that keeps the back of the house running very well. So that's your bookkeeping, your payroll, incorporation services, register agent services. And then lastly, hopefully, which none of you will ever be a client of, tax controversy, That is taxpayer representation before the IRS and state tax authorities. If you have a balance that you cannot full pay with the IRS, then you can engage a company like us to do that. Yes, this is one of those, in the middle of the night. Do you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS? Are you tired of Uncle Sam chasing you and harassing you? Are your wages being garnished? I'm about to say, has they drained your bank account? Then call us and we can help solve your problem for fractions of what you may owe. Yeah, kind of along those lines, but you get it. We also help with back tax filings to aid in compliance. So if you needed to file previous year tax returns, and then in the real estate sector, if you're trying to sell a property, we help with lien subordinations and discharges so that the deal can go through. Okay. So let's get to the point of this presentation. So as a result of the COVID-19 virus or coronavirus, many of us around the world, and in particular in the United States, found ourselves with our income streams being disrupted. So whether that is wages, whether that is a business and its revenue, those things were disrupted largely because we were ordered to stay at home, social distance, keep away from people, um, so that hopefully we could flatten the curve. And what that meant for us was people not being able to go and earn their money. All right. Um, at the very bottom of the screen, you will see a link to a report, federalreserve.gov publications 2019 report, economic well-being U.S. households. What that is that's the report that the Fed puts out every year with regards to the economic well-being of the country. The report, what you're seeing on your screen, is the result of that report. And what they did is they put some anecdotes in there about 2020 because, of course, we were all in the midst of dealing with COVID-19. What are some of the things that this report kind of brings out? 39% of workers living in a household earning $40,000 or less lost a job or furloughed in March, compared to 19% of individuals in households making between 40,000 and 100,000, compared to only 13%, and I use the term only loosely, 13% of those households making more than $100,000. So what is this telling us? Those that within the economic scale or range of how much you earn who were on the lower end of the scale were impacted. And does that make sense? Of course it makes sense. I'm a finance guy. I've been doing finance for over 20 years. I live, breathe, sleep numbers, for a good majority of the time that I'm awake. And when you think about the lower scale of people with regards to earning, they tend to be or hold positions that are variable in nature. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you are working at a restaurant, and that restaurant has a convention that comes in town, what is the restaurant going to do? It's going to call in more bussers and servers and people because you're on a variable scale. They just give you more hours, okay? Whereas an individual who is working a salary job, maybe potentially at the higher ends of the scale, you're not impacted as much by variability of what's going on in the economy. It does not mean that you can't, because people have been impacted by it. But it just means that the lower scale tends to be impacted more, which is kind of what these numbers are indicating. At the end of 2019, and once again, this is a 19 report, they just put anecdotes in about 2020. At the end of 2019, 3 in 10 adults, 3 in 10, 30%, so they could not cover 3 months worth of expenses with savings or borrowing. So that means either the money they have saved up or through their credit, okay, in the case of a job loss. What did this indicate? It indicated that they were not prepared for the current financial challenges. They, meaning all of us collectively, Americans, not prepared to deal with 3 months worth of disruption. Here's the thing to remember. Most of the stay-at-home orders in the United States of America began in the middle of March. And here in Illinois, I believe, I'm looking like there's a sign up there because there used to be a sign on the door. I want to say it was March 21st. We were ordered stay at home. Essential workers such as us, we handle federal related deadlines. We were allowed to come to work. So March 21, it is now the 18th of June, 3 months. So 30% of adults could not cover 3 months worth of living expenses through borrowing, having credit because they either don't have a credit or they don't have sufficient credit, or they didn't have enough savings. Okay. Just 64% of individuals who lost their jobs or were working fewer hours in March felt that they would be able to pay their bills in April. So what does that mean? 30%, 35, okay, 35% of individuals um, said that they wouldn't be able to pay their bills in April. You got to read the question in reverse. So 64% of the individuals who were working fewer hours in March said that they could pay their bills in April. That means that 35% within 1 month said, no, I can't pay my bills. And it's not all or nothing. Okay, you might not be able to pay some of your bills. But that's an important point, is that 35% of individuals can't go 1 month and manage to pay all of their bills. Okay, the Fed report, to do is I'm jumping around with things. The Fed report confirmed some things that we already know, is that there are differences in financial well-being across racial and ethnic groups, and that's persisted in America in 2019. The results revealed that 2/3, so 66% of African American and Hispanic adults, that they were doing at least okay financially, compared to 8 in 10 Caucasian adults. So 66% of African Americans and Hispanics said that they were doing okay, compared to 80% of their Caucasian counterparts. 25% of African American and Hispanic adults who were not working full time and wanted more work in late 2019. So 25% wanted to work more, but they could not. All of this is just simply to highlight the fact that we as a nation do have an issue with saving. We do have an issue with having enough, in reserve should there be a disruption. Yes, some of you are savers, some of you are spenders. I tend to be more of the saver. It doesn't mean that my wife is a spender. It just means that there's a yin and a yang that kind of goes on. There's always going to be one person that spends more. But needless to say, this is kind of indicating that, hey, we weren't prepared for this as a nation and various groups, okay? Which is the reason why we are hosting this this presentation. So let's move on. All right. So potential post-COVID-19 new normal. So what I need to do is kind of frame up where we might be headed. There's military sayings about, such and such planning. I'm not going to use the exact words, but such and such planning leads to such and such performance. Okay. It's a set of P's, you can look it up on Google. But you should always be planning. So being informed and knowing where we're going to go is going to help you. So what is the potential post COVID-19 new normal look like? Okay, four areas that we're going to look at. Economic downturn. Be advised, a full business cycle, meaning between the height of an economy and the bust of an economy, the peak and entering in a recession and a trough, is on average 4.7 years. Okay. A 2021 recession is obvious because it is defined from a technical standpoint as 2/4 of GDP decline. Okay, GDP being gross domestic product, what we pump out as a nation. If you have 2/4 consecutive of declining production, you are in a recession. It's not something to be afraid of. It's a term. Okay, and yeah, 2/4. So remember, March 21st here in Illinois, we were not able to go to work. That means everybody's not spending money, they're not consuming, they're not commuting to and from work. There's your Q1. It is June the 18th. Q2 ends on June 30th. Guess what? There's your Q2. We're going to be in a recession. Okay. The average recession lasts for 17.5 months or 1.5 years, which if you take 1 year from today, that puts you to June of 2021. Hence the statement above, a 2020/2021 recession is obvious. Okay. The longest contraction or recession of record in the US was the Great Depression in 1929. That lasted 43 months or 3.6 years. The last recession that we had here in the US was 2008, 2009. It is now 2020. So kind of looking at the math, if an average cycle is 4.7 years, we were well overdue for a correction. All right. And I'll kind of talk about this with a section about investments and some things that I was doing. But the thing is that if you pay attention to certain things, you're going to be prepared. I knew that we were overdue for a recession. I didn't know what was going to trigger it. Trust me, I don't have that good of I'm not that much of a soothsayer, but I knew that 10 years is a lot longer than 4.7. and we're going to go down at some point in time. Keeping that in mind, I framed up some of the things that I personally was doing with that in mind, and you can as well. All right. Sector recovery is going to take time. Live event companies, travel related companies, trade shows, conference operators, theme parks, film and studio, movie exhibitors, they suffered the most. Travel related companies. Let me ask you this. You don't have your videos on, or if you do, it doesn't really make a difference, but raise your hand. How many people would get in a rental car right now? Better yet, would you get on an airplane? I didn't think so. Even when we come out of this, people are not going to be, you know, all that willing to, right, exactly. Nobody is going to just go and jump on a plane and, try and go traveling. So I used to work, for those that don't know, I spent 13 years in corporate America. My last position was working for Hyatt, and I had the privilege of working at the corporate headquarters. And Hyatt is hospitality. And I have relatives that work for an airline carrier. That airline carrier has been down by about 90% in terms of their volume. Some of my colleagues at Hyatt, unfortunately, after 3 months of the company trying to keep everything going the way that they wanted to, um, after 2 furloughs, they had to do a round of cuts. But the point is that certain sectors are going to be impacted for a long, long time. I remember for a fact when I did work in hospitality, when Katrina hit, Katrina took some of the New Orleans properties offline for like 2 years. So what happens if you work on property? You don't have a job for a long time, or you have to pivot and just relocate. So the point is that recovery is going to take time. Because we are not, most of us are not going to go jumping around getting in cars and rental cars and traveling. um, where there's a potential second wave of cases, pre-vaccine availability that could stall the recovery, but that's the point. Pre-vaccine, most of us are probably not going to be doing anything until we can get stuck with a shot that potentially keeps us from getting COVID-19. um, and then there's the potential of a second wave. They're already talking, you're looking at the numbers. I have a little thing on my phone. I think it's called World Health Numbers, where I'm a geek like that. I look at the stats worldwide, every day or once a day, every other day, just to see who's trending what. Yeah, and we're doing about 20 something thousand cases in the US again, where we had been down. And Florida's a hotspot, Texas is a hotspot. Cali had 4,000. They'd been down to like 1,000. So there's this second wave that could be out there as we come back from social distancing. And then the sector recovery I have down there. Will you be the grasshopper or an ant? So many of you, if you are my age or older, are aware of the story of the grasshopper and the ant. If you are younger, you might be going, "What? I don't understand what you're talking about." Just go Google it, okay? There's a video out there somewhere. I know there is. Look at the grasshopper and the ant. We all know the story. And for those that you don't, um, there was a grasshopper and an ant. Ant was with the ant army. They were constantly going back and forth throughout the seasons of winter, spring, summer, and fall. It was really spring, summer, and fall, going and gathering things, because just like Game of Thrones, winter is coming. They knew it was coming, and they wanted to plan for it. So they made sure that they stored all their food and all these little things. And while the little ants are marching by, there's this one little ant that talks to the grasshopper, and the grasshopper was like, I'll get to it, I'll do it, I'll work on it. But he wanted to play and lounge and do all these other things. And then fall came, and the ants were storing all their stuff and hanging out in the ant hill, doing their ant life. And the grasshopper realizes, oh, I better get on it, goes out there, tries to find the food, but the food's all gone and scarce. And then winter comes, and the ant is out shivering in the cold and about to starve and die. And I don't know how the ant came out and found the grasshopper. That's the part of the story I don't remember. It was a cartoon, kids, okay? But the grasshopper, the ant finds the grasshopper, brings the ant in and says, hey, you can have some of our stuff. You can stay in our shelter and be warm. And it brings up two morals, okay? Morals which may have been lost, since these cartoons and things, existed, which was one, prepare for the future. It's important to prepare for the future. Secondarily, it is possible for others to watch out for other people and to show compassion. The ant invited the grasshopper in, shared what they had, and watched out for his fellow, I guess, insect. So two important lessons that we should all take heat of right now. COVID, new normal banking environment. Due to SBA and PPP lending, the banks will or may have to slow their lending due to reserve requirements. In case you don't know how the banking industry works, the money that we give the banks in our savings accounts, the banks then in turn lend that out, and that's how they make their money on like mortgages and other higher interest rates products that they charge us for. With those products, they're required by the Federal Reserve Bank to keep a reserve. So if they get, I'm gonna use small numbers, $1 million in assets, that they have, the reserve requirement may be that they have to withhold 20% in cash. So if there's ever a run on the bank, like people going to the bank and trying to pull money out, they have some cash on hand. So those reserve limits are, I don't know if it's exactly 20%, but let's say it's 20%. They can lend out 80% of the money. Well, the SBA programs that came out of the CARES Act, the recent, push that the legislature put out, to help shore up the economy and lend to small businesses that were struggling. Everybody mostly heard about the PPP program or the Paycheck Protection Program. Those are administered by the SBA and they're done by the banks. So the banks get the money and then they lend it out. Well, guess what? They have reserve requirements related to that. So what that means is because there's all this extra lending activity going on, the banks are going to have to hold on to reserves and they may not lend out as much because of that. They may not have the capacity to lend out as much to you who wants an auto loan because those funds are being directed to PPP loans. So with that being said, you can expect lending to contract and become harder to obtain for less than optimal prospects. Well, what's a less than optimal prospect? We're talking about credit score here. So somebody who has an 840, you're lendable. Somebody who has 500, you're usually lendable, but you're going to find it harder now because the banks are going to be more, they're going to scrutinize things more. Why is that? Because the bankers are only really concerned with one thing at the end of the day. It's not about helping you or me or the consumer. It's about getting repaid. That's the whole game of lending, okay? And we base that off of credit scores, credit worthiness. You show that you can pay, then guess what? We'll lend to you, okay? There's also probably going to be a continued low interest rate environment because the government is going to want to continue to spur economic spending and exchange, which will be very good for those that are looking to obtain funding, house loans, car loans, etc. Very bad for those that that are relying on savings accounts for their return on investment because the interest rates are going to be very, very paltry. Lastly, you'll have government intervention, continued propping up of the economy. Like I said, there's the CARES Act. There was, the stimulus payments that everybody got. You're going to see those things continue. I don't know what they are. I have no insider track to it. I'm just simply saying it's expected that that will continue. If there was mass, people not paying their mortgages, or tenants not paying the landlords, which caused the landlords to default on their mortgages or get behind, you could see a propping up of the banking industry. Once again, this is just Jared's thought process and speculation. I was driving in today and there was on the news radio, there was someone that said that, I don't even remember what the number was, but there were a number of, maybe it was 1 million. There were a number of people who hadn't paid their car notes and their house notes because they didn't have the ability to pay it. Well, once again, the banks have reserves, but at a certain point when they're not doing well, they're going to have to seek help themselves. There may be things, depending on how long this is prolonged, you may see the propping up of the banking industry. And long term, who knows, you could see programs to assist buyers, home buyers. All right, let's get to the real meat of this presentation, which is broken down into 3 sections for you, okay? We're going to talk about 3 Ps: protecting your money, positioning yourself to come out of this, and how to prosper, okay? So once again, around the end of May, a good friend of mine, Ashanti Johnson, who owns the gym, 360 Mind, Body, Soul, 360 MBS, invited me to be a part of a health and wellness webinar. It was all virtual, and I had a 20-minute presentation on money, okay? So what I thought would be pretty cool is it was a Q&A type of format. So these are some of the questions that were posed to me and some of my responses. So we're just gonna kind of go through that, all right? So with regards to protecting the money, what should people do, Jared, if they are facing reduced income or a complete loss of income due to COVID-19? Well, that's a very good question. First thing I say is think of where the demand is and potentially pivot, okay? So let's just say that you were a server, you were a busser, you were working at a restaurant, you were working in conventions, and your hours have been cut, or you have no income whatsoever. Well, think about it. Demand is kind of like energy; is neither created nor destroyed. It just simply transfers. Okay, yeah, I'm a science geek too. All right, so moves around. So demand moved from restaurants to grocery stores. But there are certain restaurants out there that was still delivering, even though there were certain taxi cab companies that were not driving. There were some people who said, okay, I'll go drive for Uber. So Uber, DoorDash, and other essential positions had positions. Amazon is super, super up. So much so that you order something and they tell you it's going to be delivered one day, and then like you look and Amazon's not delivered for like 3 days later than the date that they originally told you, because their demand is just so super crazy. So you could go and work on a warehouse. But the point is that the demand simply moves, so you could potentially go where the demand is. Go get a job in one of these essential positions. But Jared, I don't want to be in a warehouse. I don't want to potentially expose myself to COVID-19. I'm asthmatic. I have relatives that live with me. I'm elderly, whatever that may be. Okay, fine. Next best option. Go and apply for unemployment. Okay. So if you have been working, you're eligible for unemployment. The federal government created some extended benefits for those, meaning that individuals who may not have normally been eligible for unemployment, contractors, Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, people that were paid 1099, they told the states you have to make these people eligible. And they also added extra benefits. So you get the standard unemployment that you get because you worked a job, but then you get this COVID-19 unemployment of, $500, $600 extra. And then they extended the window that you could get it. Also, if you are working a job, my wife is in this particular position. She's working at home, but they're doing furloughs. Well, when you're furloughed, you can actually go apply for unemployment. You may not be able to get the full benefits. It turns on and off. But if you're furloughed, you can go apply for unemployment. Where do you apply for unemployment? Just go Google your state unemployment agency. Here in Illinois is the Illinois Department of Employment Security, IDES, IDES. Go to their website, apply for benefits. Okay. So if you have no money coming in, go apply. All right. Evaluate your service needs and contact your providers or creditors if needed. What does that mean? I got a cell phone. I got a bunch of other stuff, going on around here. Um, I we as humans all have some basic needs: food, clothing, shelter. Once those three needs are met, everything else is either a want or a desire. Okay. So if you are facing reduced income or complete loss of income, look at everything that you're spending your money on, determine what you absolutely need, and then everything else that is a want and need, determine if you can scale it back or if you can just absolutely just eliminate it. Okay, we don't need cable right now. Well, Jerry, where am I going to get my news? If your phone is on, you can get it off of your phone. Um, I absolutely need to, have my meals come from such and such because of a dietary restriction. They don't necessarily need to come from a service. You do need to eat. Maybe you can make your meals on your own, but you got to think broadly, okay, of how you can potentially, change and adjust. The insurance companies were very generous lately. Um, I know because I saw it. People, you're not driving, so guess what? We're going to refund some of your premiums. All right. But guess what? If you were in a situation in which you couldn't pay your bill, pick up the phone, call whoever it is, your provider, and say, hey, guess what? I can't pay my bill. We do tax controversy. So once again, we deal with people who have tax debt. And I'm working a case right now where the individual is not paying his mortgage because he called the mortgage company and told them that he couldn't pay it. So he's not paying it. Guess what? Until when? October. So guess what? If you never ask, you will not receive. Okay. So, Jared, what can business owners do now to survive their reduced sales, revenue, demand as a result of COVID-19? So, this is for all my business folks out there. All right. Same advice. Pivot to offer scaled down or retooled offerings. So, if you are dealing with a situation in which you do things face to face, if you're dealing with services that are delivered in a certain way, like a restaurant, or you physically have to go someplace and do servicing, look at all the services that you offer and see if there's any way that you can scale them down so you can still offer a level of that service, or you can retool the offering. So once again, there's a restaurant I love to go to. It's up on in Lincoln Park. It's an Italian restaurant. I'm not going to tell you the name because I love it so much. And I don't want everybody going in because it's super, super small. But needless to say, um, the chef sends us an email like, I don't remember, I think it was right before Mother's Day, and was like, hey, we're getting the crew back together. I told all the people, and we're going to be open for carry out. He had a limited menu. You could order it. You had to place the order. You went and you picked it up. Everybody knew what the deal was. You walked in, you had on your mask. You would tell them you were there because you had a pickup time. You go out, wait outside in your car. They either called you, you came back in, you got it, and then I drove all the way back out to the south side, and then we had very nice, Italian restaurant quality meal. So that's what they did. But think broadly. Can you change something? Is there the gym owner that I talked about? She started doing virtual workouts. Is that the same as the X dollars that she's getting for an in-class session? No, but she's trying to survive. Her rent is like a lot of money per month. Okay, um, but look at what you can pivot. What can you retool? Look at grants and other assistance programs and offerings. So once again, there was the EIDL, Economic Impact Disaster Loan. I think that's what it stands for. Otherwise, I'm just real good at making that up. The EIDL program and the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP. Those programs have been in flux. Sometimes they were open and they were closed because they ran out of money. I think as of right now, they are back. EIDL is back open because it had only been opened up to agricultural businesses like farmers. But I think it's now back open. You can check. If the programs aren't open, look for grants. Okay, just go out and Google COVID-19 small business grant. Okay, I'm a part of many forums. There was a forum I was in. Somebody applied for a grant, got $250. Now you sitting there going, Jared, all right, $250. What is $250 going to do for my business? I'm about to say in the midst of COVID-19. 250 is better than a big zero. Get what you can. There's the city programs that are out there. There are the grant programs that are available from private foundations. Go and apply. Now, just like an individual, I would say control and monitor your P&L or your profit and loss statement until things ease up. Do the same exact exercise. Go through what can you reduce, what can you cut. I don't recommend cutting your marketing because that's like cutting the hand that feeds a business. But you may want to redeploy your marketing dollars to online because guess what? We're all at home. We're all sick. Well, I'm not at home. I'm actually here in the office. But everybody's at home, everybody's in front of their computers, everybody's got more eyes on this. Have you noticed, like, there's like no mail like coming in your mailbox, like even the junk mail doesn't exist, like seriously, because everybody's in front. So put the eyes, put your advertising where the eyes are, which is right here on this camera and on this screen. Okay, but look at your P&L, see what you can reduce, see what you can pull back on, and see what you can redeploy. And if you did receive PPP funding, make sure your financials are in order and up to date for applying for PPP loan forgiveness. Loan forgiveness applications are already out there. If you use the money for PPP, I believe it is 60% on payroll, 40% on rent, utilities, and other things. It got expanded. It used to be 8 weeks, 24 weeks. If you spend the money that you received in a 24-week time frame on all of those things, guess what? Your loan is then forgiven. Well, my loan is not going to be forgiven because I didn't spend it that way, Jared. But guess what? It's a very low interest rate loan that goes out for years. Okay, so it's very economical funding for you to survive if you have it. So even if you don't get the forgiveness, you're facing a much better scenario than if you'd have gotten a normal interest rate loan during normal circumstances. But make sure your financials are up to date because guess what they're going to want in order to prove that you spent the money on what you said you spent the money. Financials. So bookkeeping, get it done, all that good stuff. Lastly, what am I, Jared, doing to mentally get through this time? Focusing on my resilience is number one. All of you are clients. So guess what? You get these nice little things that show up. And I know I'm just playing, who sent me this junk? Oh, Jared, in the garbage. But it's okay. You said Jared before you threw it away. All right. In this latest issue, I actually talk about resilience. And there are 5 tips that I put in there about resilience, which is one thing to know is that the boogeyman in our brains and in the closet is usually a lot bigger than the one that really exists. So face your fears, okay? Yeah, it's a challenging time. People are facing job loss. Some are in much worse positions than others. Okay, but face your fears. Okay. When I went out on my own and started, heading up this business, um, you know, I would say things like, "What if nobody comes? What if I get no money? What if I get no revenue? Like absolutely zero." And that's an irrational thought. Like seriously, like being open for a year and not getting one client during the height of tax season. Do you know what? My first client actually was a person who wasn't looking for our office. He was looking for the H&R Block that was two blocks down the street. But he found us first, so he came in. That's my first client. Okay. So the thing is that you're going to be able to the fear. Some fears are just irrational. Okay. Reframe your stressful thoughts. That's another of the 5 tips for building resilience. Reframe your stressful thoughts. It'll be okay. Focus on the next thing. Play to your strengths. Um, Focus on what you can control. As a business owner, I can't control anything. I can't control who makes the phone ring. I can't control who comes through the door. I can control my attempts to go and get business. I can control my attempts to market. I can control my attempts to go out and make a sale. I can control my attempts to make meetings. But outside of that, I don't control anything. And to be honest with you, this business has a life of its own. It doesn't really need me. I'm at the helm of it, but this thing is grown to a point that it does its own thing, and I'm just trying to control it and stay on the reins of it. But play to your strengths. Those are the things I can control. What can you control in your situation? Okay. Establish and nurture a supportive social network. So Zoom calls, group calls, call your family. My parents are in Michigan. Talk to them once a week. Make sure that they're safe. um, have supportive people around you. Because negativity breeds negativeness, and you want to make sure that during this time you're keeping your spirits uplifted. And that's the last point, which is to keep a positive attitude. Okay. And those are two of the things that I already said. So I'm also maintaining a positive attitude, and I'm trying to help others where I can, which makes me feel good. So for my clients, doing things like this, we're going to talk about a video series that we're doing at the end, which also makes me feel good. But at the end of the day, that's what I'm doing to try and mentally get through this time. All right, now let's go to positioning for the future. Um, First thing to remember, this will not last forever. What can people do now to position themselves for a return to normal as things get lifted? Use this time to get your financial house in order, savings and cutting your expenses. Do not stop your retirement plan contributions. Use this time to maximize dollar cost averaging. If you are still working, even if you're furloughed, don't cut your retirement plan contributions. Look for other things to cut, okay? Because if you keep contributing right now, have you all seen the stock market this first quarter, first half of the year? It's been going like this. I don't remember last week it was like 1,800 point decline. Today is not looking good either, because the markets are super skitterish. But if you're putting money in at this time, you're you're reaping the benefit of buying stocks low. You're reaping the benefits of getting these investments low. And once again, well, Jared, what if it doesn't come back? Remember, cyclical cycle, 4.7 years, it's probably going to come back. Okay. So then you buy low and it goes up and you achieve, your goals. Okay. So don't stop investing in your retirement. For those with investment portfolios, talk to your financial advisor about reallocation of your portfolio as well as loss harvesting. So you may not want to actually recallocate depending on where some of your positions are. If you had a bunch of stocks that are underwater now, you might not want to reallocate. Loss harvesting is just simply when you sell stocks that are in loss positions to offset gains that you know that you're going to have in other portfolio positions. Mutual funds, this is important because you have to pick up and report your gains on mutual funds every year anyway. So the portfolio managers will usually do this anyway. That's their job. That's what they get paid for. But if you have a financial advisor, you might want to just talk to them about, making sure that your portfolio is properly allocated and ask them, about loss harvesting if it's going on. And then lastly, look for where the deals will be. Yes, we will be in a recession. That is going to mean, unfortunately, people will lose their jobs, they will lose their houses, they will lose their cars. The IRS will collect on certain things will get seized. And I know that this sounds very nasty and mean or whatever. But guess what? If I can get a Porsche, that costs $150,000 for $50,000 at auction because some guy didn't pay their taxes and had their car seized, too bad for him, but guess what? I got a Porsche and I got it on deal. So look for where the deals will be. This is going to include housing, all these things. Wherever people may potentially lose, there's going to be the opportunity for deals. Think about it. And if you are in the market for something in that area, think about positioning yourself to take advantage. Jared, is there anything that people should be doing from a tax perspective? Oh, that's my arena. Yeah, first and foremost, file your taxes, even if you owe. Two reasons. If you do owe, the IRS says that the balance is not due until July the 15th. It's less than 30 days now. July the 15th, 2020. No penalties, no interest. Jared, I'm your client. I already filed my tax return. Okay, spread this information to your friends. Okay, tell them, let everybody know. No penalties and interest on balances due up until July the 15th. You can pay it at that point in time. Also, the IRS has suspended collections activity. So if you were in the unfortunate position of being on an installment agreement or a payment plan, the IRS is not there. That's suspended through July the 15th. Okay. Also, filing tax returns. You need to file a 2018 or 19 return to get a stimulus payment. Okay. That's what the payment is going to be based off of, one of those 2 years. A lot of people have already filed for their stimulus. A lot of people have already received their stimulus. We were ineligible for stimulus because we made too much money for the stimulus. I'm completely fine with that because the stimulus money was to go to those that were in the most need and were most at risk. So people who, work hourly positions, maybe a single parent who has 2 children, lost their job, no daycare, needs to put food on the table. You need the $1,200. It'd be nice for Jared to get the $1,200, but I don't need it. Okay. I'd want it, but I don't need it. The other thing is that stimulus payments are going through 12/31/2020. So if a person has not filed a tax return, they have all the way up through the end of the year to file that return. So 18, 19 return, get those filed. And now is the perfect time if you, which none of you are, or a friend, which you may, have tax debt to work on getting it resolved. Because the IRS bases fact. 80% of individuals with IRS debt wind up on a payment plan. Yeah, I know that doesn't match up to what you hear on the radio, but that's advertising. It doesn't mean that they're lying. It just means that there's a very small subset that qualifies for relief of getting their debt wiped off or settling for a fraction of a dollar. That's really called the Offer and Compromise Program. But 80% of people with tax debt wind up on a payment plan. And that payment plan is based off of your capacity to pay, how much income you have, and what expenses you have according to IRS allowable standards. Well, guess what? If you're not working, what's your capacity to pay? Big fat goose egg. Guess what? Go apply for relief, get your old tax returns filed. The IRS will potentially put you in a status known as currently not collectible, CNC. Okay. So if you're dealing with a tax problem or you know somebody dealing with it, now's the time to deal with it. Okay. Not when the economy's doing good. What am I doing with Jared's money at the moment? I'm not spending on unnecessary items. I'm controlling my expenses. I was going to go get a brand new car this year. It wasn't going to be a brand new model year. It was going to be a brand new car. So it was going to be, what are we in, 2020? Probably, I don't know, like a 2019 car, because my car is 14 years old and it costs a lot in repair bills and I needed a new car. Guess what? I'm just going to continue paying repair bills at the moment because I don't need a car note, especially with things being kind of uncertain. So I'm controlling my expenses. I'm continuing to make my retirement plan contributions, as I mentioned the reason why earlier. And I'm evaluating what 12 to 18 months looks like from an economic perspective. So we sold our home last August. We're in the market for a home. Once showings start happening, live showings, not virtual showings, then we'll go out and we're going to be looking at homes. Maybe somebody loses a home. I know that's very, bad. But it can be a deal for us, so I'm looking at where the opportunities are going to be on my end and potentially looking and positioning myself to snag those. All right, guys, almost done. Prosper. So what can you do to prosper? What are the best things to invest in during COVID-19, Jared? Well, considering that I'm not an investment advisor and I'm not authorized to give securities advice, I have no idea. So this is all just Jared's random thinking, based off of a logical train of thought, of course. Real estate is going to continue to decline. It was already declining before. As I mentioned, I'm a part of the Chicago Association of Realtors. We were moving out of a seller's market into a buyer's market, which is one of the reasons why we sold our home, because I knew something was going to happen and I was ready to pull out. It just kind of made good sense. So there are going to be deals to be had on the opposite side. Interest rates are going to remain low, but lenders will start to tighten funds and increase screening. What does this mean? Just interest rates will remain low, which is good for you if you're trying to buy a house or something that's tied to an interest rate. but just realize that, the lenders are going to potentially, tighten up their criteria. So just making sure that you paying your bills, if you're in a position to, paying your bills on time, making sure that credit score is good and healthy, so that you can take advantage of these low interest rates, possibly refinancing homes or other long-term loans to take advantage of the rates. So if you have a home right now, you're paying, my last home, we were at a 5.5% interest rate. I really didn't care about it, but interest rates now like what, 3%, something really ridiculous. So maybe you do a refi and take that extra money that you were paying towards the banks and move it over into an investment and save some money and grow yourself, a nest egg. Okay. So once again, no one thing stands out. I'm just going to simply say, hey, look for the bargains. What's the best money advice that I can give? Don't limit yourself. Jared, that didn't even sound like money advice. What in the world does that mean? Don't limit yourself. Okay. So when people lose jobs, you could be an older individual who got laid off and you're like, I'm never going to get back into the job market. You could be thinking, I hated my job. I really hated it. Well, now's the time to maybe think about retraining yourself or taking classes or going in a different direction. Um, oh, Jared, but that's going to require me to go to school. Don't limit yourself. Oh, that's going to require me to take out student loans. Don't limit yourself. Oh, I'm too old to be retrained. Don't limit yourself. That's the best money advice. Don't limit yourself. Second point, give yourself permission to dream and achieve big. We deal with tax. Sometimes I have people come in to me, hey, I'm looking to pay the least amount of tax possible. Okay, I get that. Nobody likes to pay more tax than we are legally obligated to pay. Okay, got it. Yeah, I just don't want to have a big tax bill. So I mean, I'm not gonna go and get this extra job because then my Social Security becomes taxable. I'm not gonna go out and start this business venture because then I have to pay more taxes. I'm not gonna do this because then I have. Okay, that doesn't make sense. All right. So one of my clients, the biggest bookkeeping client that we ever had, did very, very well. And we handled all the books for them, all the financial matters for them, etc. There was one particular year, and this gentleman just owns a business. He owns a business that is set up as a sole proprietorship at that point in time. So he was responsible for paying the tax bill. Okay. In 1 year, I remember me writing or producing checks for him to sign to the Internal Revenue Service of $750,000. Real money. I saw it come out of the bank account. But yeah, he made $2.4 million. Well, Jared, I'm going to say that's rich folks' problems. I'm going to say, I don't want to pay $750,000 worth of tax, but guess what? If I'm making $2.4 million, I'll figure out how to solve a $750,000 tax problem. Dream big. Don't limit yourself, okay? That's the best advice I can give. Lastly, best advice for single parents. So if you are a single mother, a single father, you know, and this is not meant to sound stereotypical, this or gender specific. Women tend to be more of the nurturers and the givers and the carers. Okay, they wipe the boo-boos and wipe the tears away when we have the scrapes. Whenever we get, I remember plenty of times I got in trouble. Some dog is chasing me. You better believe I'm calling for mama. Okay, but here's the point. As a carer and a giver, you tend to give to your kids, to everybody else, to make sure that mom is okay, make sure that the grandparents okay. And sometimes it's at the neglect of yourself. Okay. Watch out for you. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I just simply mean make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Okay. So give yourself permission to take care of yourself. It's okay. It's okay to make sure that you put your savings before you go and spend it on groceries. It's okay to do those things. Okay, and that's the next point. Pay yourself first. You should always pay yourself first. Savings. Okay, have a emergency fund, and then always invest in retirement. At the end of the day, you want to be the individual who stops working because you want to stop working or because your body is tired. You don't have to keep working because you can't, and you're forced to keep working because you don't have enough money saved. All right, so that gives us, we're right about the 10-minute mark, so I'm going to move into this next section. So as a result of the conversation, it kind of started with Ashanti, and after we had done our video about people managing money, and as we kind of talked about earlier, us as Americans had not been in a good place of being prepared for something like this. And there are lots of things that have happened, as a result of COVID-19. There's been social unrest for different things that have happened. The unfortunate killing of George Floyd, several other individuals, people losing jobs, just inequality. It's all kind of been bubbling up. And it's all kind of been bubbling up. And people have said, it's become a very pivotal time where people are really taking a deep look and reevaluating certain things and saying, what can I do? So what we said was, yes, we see things happening in certain communities. Certain groups were disproportionately affected by, job loss, and COVID-19 disproportionately affected certain groups. And what the statement was is, well, Jared, what are people doing? There's nobody in the African American community that's really kind of like talking about money. And I kind of was like disagreeing. I was like, no, there's somebody talking. And there are people out there, they're, the wealth managers, et cetera. But somebody was like, no, there's not somebody like at the grassroots level kind of like talking about like what we need to be doing. And if you all don't know, I mean, I've authored several books, but my first book was written in 2003 called Pathways to Wealth, Common Sense Guide to Personal Money Management and Lifestyle Techniques. And that book was completely about managing your money, like when you get your first job. And, it kind of fell by the wayside because getting people to buy into money is a very hard thing. It's not sexy, so it's not an easy thing to sell. And I kind of was like, I'll just focus on things that I know people need to buy, like tax returns. But in light of this and taking a good internal look at myself and saying, well, what can I do? Whether it's in helping the African American community or just helping Americans at large, helping those that are disenfranchised or disproportionately impacted, wage earners, whatever it may be, we decided to start the new money management series. So it's a new video series called Minding My Money Mondays. A video is released every single Monday. The topic categories include earning, saving, spending, budgeting, investing, credit, borrowing, and tax, okay? You can get to them by visiting any of our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, or you can just simply go to the bottom and go to youtube.com and type in, there's a search bar just like Google, Minding My Money Mondays. So what I'm going to do with you is we're just still in the infancy. The first episode was released Thursday? This past Monday. And I'll be shooting a couple of videos, soon. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share with you part of that first episode right now, so you can get a flavor for it.
Welcome to Minding My Money Mondays, a common sense talk about money matters. My name is Jared Rogers, and I'm going to be your tour guide on this journey. So what is the goal of this series? It is to help you make your money make sense. And that's sense, S-E-N-S-E, not sense as in like, coins. But that's the goal. And how are we going to make your money make sense? Well, each and every week, we're going to bring you a different episode, and we're going to talk about one topic, okay? That topic could be about debt, it could be about investing, it could be about retirement, it could simply be about understanding money. And within that topic, we're going to provide you some insights, and then we're going to hopefully give you some actionable advice that you can then use to help your money make sense. Now, what if you have a question? What if you want me to potentially answer your question on an episode? Very simple. Send it to questions@makemymoneymakesense. And once again, that's sense, S-E-N-S-E, because we want it to make sense, all right? Since this is the first episode, we figured that we would start with the foundation. And the foundation question that everybody usually has is, what is money? Okay. The first thing to know is that money is a medium of exchange. So back in the day, everybody knows in caveman days that people used the barter system. So if I had this Sharpie right here and I wanted to go to my local Starbucks and buy this Paris mug, I would have to carry around a bunch of Sharpies to go to the Starbucks. And what if Starbucks doesn't even want Sharpies? They say, I have no use for Sharpies, so then I can't get the Paris mug. So money is not only a medium of exchange, but it is a unit of account. So by having money right here, I can then assign value to the Sharpie, and I can assign value to the Paris mug. So I don't have to walk around carrying 5 Sharpies to go and get, the Paris mug for Starbucks, or my Venti caramel macchiato that I love so much. I would simply carry some greenbacks with me, take it to my local Starbucks, and they would tell me how much that Venti caramel macchiato cost, or cake pop, or whatever it is that I so desire. So money is a unit of account which allows us to easily exchange items. Money is also a unit of account with regards to wealth. Now, what is wealth? Wealth, that's a different topic. We're not going to talk about that here. But wealth is the accumulation of things. So those things could be money. It could be the accumulation of investments, property, precious items, jewels, stones. That is wealth. So money is also a unit of account for wealth. And what do I mean by that? Okay, who's more wealthy? A person who owns a yacht or a person who owns a Ferrari? Well, what condition is the Ferrari in? How big is the yacht? We don't know those things. But somebody can assign a value to the yacht and say it's worth $5.6 million. And somebody could say that the Ferrari is worth $126,000. So now that we have the standard unit, we can say who's more wealthy. So money is kind of used sometimes as a method of keeping score. It is used as a mechanism to exchange items and to account for wealth. And it can also be used to control things. Now, I don't mean control things in a bad way. What I mean is control access to certain things. So, for example, if you were going to live here, right here, where I am sitting at, it would cost you $2,298 per month. Okay, it doesn't really cost that amount, but the point is this. There's a certain amount that I have to pay in order to live here, whether that's a rent, a mortgage, or whatever that may be. And if you don't have that amount of said money, then you wouldn't be able to live here. If you don't have a certain amount of money, you can't buy some of the necessities, which is food, clothing, and shelter, and you won't be able to buy some of the things that you want, such as maybe transportation or certain clothes, etc., etc. So money can be used to control access to certain things, whether that's, oh, you need $90,000 to go to this particular university, or you need X amount for rent, or what have you. So money, you can use it in a certain way. That term, you have to earn a certain amount in order to gain access to certain things. Money in and of itself is not a bad thing, but this does bring up a very good point, which is money in and of itself has no real value. Yes, it does, Jared. I know money has value. Not really. So what I mean by that is this. Everybody in America says, oh, they want to be rich. They want to be a millionaire. They want to be a billionaire. But let me ask you this. If you were to have $1 million, what is that going to do for you? Well, Jared, that's going to do a lot for me. I'm going to be able to do this. See, there's the difference. Different people place different values on money. So having $1 million for someone may allow them to buy certain things. Having $1 million may allow someone to have certain experiences or have trips or go certain places. Having $1 million may allow you to earn $10,000 worth of interest in a year and use that $10,000 worth of interest to pay for college education. So the value in money doesn't lie in the number itself. The value in money lies on what you place it on, okay? So taking all of that, money is really a tool, okay? It's a tool to exchange items. It's a mechanism to account for certain things, and it affords people to be able to buy and exchange certain things. It also allows you to provide for certain experiences, wealth, retirement, all along those lines.
So with that being said, that is our new money management series. Once again, Minding My Money Mondays. You can find it on YouTube. There's a little bit more to that particular video, but it was almost done. And in the interest of time, you can go and watch it once again at YouTube, Minding My Money Mondays. I do have an ask for you. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers on our channel. So if you just click the subscribe button, it's not like we have your email or you'll get anything from us about it. But what it does is it allows us to get a custom URL so that we can then send that information in our marketing to people and let them know about this whole new series. Okay, so tune in on our Facebook page or our Twitter account, or just go to YouTube or subscribe. And every Monday we're going to have a new video out talking about how you can manage your money. All right. So of course Jared talked for forever. And I'm right at the hour, which would be a good thing if this was just a webinar. But there was supposed to be, a whole fireside chat Q&A piece of it. Um, so what I will say is my information is right here on the screen for anybody who needs it. Our social media accounts, our Twitter account is at Wilson_Rogers. Our Facebook account is Wilson Rogers Co. You can also go to our website and see our blog, and we got 185 articles there that deal with financial items. So you're more than welcome to attend any of those things and get more information. If you have a question, just throw it into the chat. I did see some questions, so I'm going to bounce back to that stuff right now. You can just, when you can pick me instead of everyone, and then I'll be the only one to see it. And let's see what some of the questions were. All right. So what about if you are retired? A business is not doing so well. The person is asking, should they take a job? And they're in a particular field that actually is the healthcare field. Um, what I would say with regards to this is, and if you're relying on business income and it's not doing so well, and there's not the opportunity to pivot, then yes, I would be looking at opportunities to potentially, supplement my income if I didn't want to put myself out there, quote unquote, in the public space because I have health concerns. Then I would look at things that potentially didn't put me in those situations, seeing if there was something that I could do potentially online, seeing if there's maybe like a customer service position or a call center position. I used to work for Intuit, the makers of TurboTax, and during tax season, I worked in a call center. You know where that call center was? Right here. Okay. Yeah, yeah, I do. Yeah, one of my clients that gave me a thumbs up. That was actually how we interacted. I do remember that. And I worked in a call center, and the call center was literally here in this office. I had a television screen, I had a phone patched in, and I answered questions. And I made X amount of dollars per hour. Uh, be creative. If you were working, you are eligible for unemployment. If you were in a position in which you were a contractor in 1099, you have to check with the state, but you should be eligible for unemployment. So look at all the avenues that you can think of to potentially, bring income in. Okay. So there's a question about the video series. Will we be the question is, will we be on Instagram or any of those other platforms? We are opening up an Instagram channel, so it will be there. I am probably also going to make sure that this is highlighted in our print newsletter. There's several things that are there. So maybe I'll include some of the topics as some of our main financial articles. But yeah, the only way to get to it right now, like I said, is to most directly is just go to YouTube. And like I said, literally, if you type in Minding My Money Mondays or Money Mondays, if you look for that image, because it's the way that you code a video in YouTube, you can put hashtags to it, and we put the hashtag in for the video series Minding My Money Monday. So if you search for it, it's like the first thing that comes up. Just like if you search for how to save money in COVID-19, you'll get a bunch of videos coming back. So if there wasn't anything that was answered here, go ahead, go to YouTube. Just do a search right now. There's going to be plenty of people that are going to give you all information. Okay. What else do we have? So somebody had to leave, unfortunately. So I thank you for being here. I thank you for taking the time to watch. Are there any other questions at the moment? Going once. I do see one that just came through. Let me go ahead with this. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. So this question, paraphrasing, because I never ever like to reveal too much about clients, because you all are all you all are all clients. Someone is trying to determine what to do with their money right now. especially since they're at home? Is it a good idea to take on, like, house development projects, or renovating the house, things like that? Is that a smart way to spend money? Um, and that's fair. You can also save questions for one-on-one. I'm kind of jumping around because I'm reading the chat as I'm talking. I'm sorry. But is that a smart way to spend money? At the moment, I often tell people this when it comes to money. Okay, spend your money on things that make sense to you and things that you want to spend them on. Don't necessarily look at them for a tax write-off or a tax consequence or a tax benefit. I often use this crazy scenario. Kid is staying at home in his mom's basement, but wants a tax write-off so he goes out and buys a house. You ask, how much money were you spending before you moved out your mom's basement? Zero. So now you went and got a $10,000. You spent $10,000 in mortgage interest to get a tax write-off when you were paying zero in real dollars beforehand. So if you are looking to make renovations to a home, if you are, or a rental property, and it makes sense for you and you can take advantage of low interest rates, that's fine. But start with the goal. What is it that I want to achieve? So I want to help people. So I said, what's the easiest way to help people? Oh, I'll start a video series and I will put it out there into the ethos because I want to help people. Side note, I actually decided to volunteer for a mentor organization because I want to help people. I've been talking about it for a year. Time to take action, do something. Now is the time. That's one of the good things that I'm seeing out of so much strife and tragedy and just disheartenment and disgust with where we're at right now as a country, is that there's so many people who are still kind, still sharing, still want to do something. There's several brands right now that are taking a look at social imaging and historical use of logos, but a lot of people are taking action. The one organization that I was looking at to do the volunteer, you have to go through an orientation. They said that the month before, it was all video, there were 11 people that had volunteered. There were 11. Yes, this is being recorded. We will send out a video link if you have to jump off. But there were 11 people that had attended. In the session that I was in, there were 33. Okay, so there's lots of people that are taking action. So if it makes sense and you can take action based off of the low interest rates and it works for you, then so be it. Just knowing this particular situation with a rental property, just realizing that anything that goes into the property doesn't get written off in the year for the year. So it's a 27-year long slog that you get the money back. But if you're looking to invest money in certain things, then now's maybe a good time. If you are legitimately looking at doing projects, yes, cost of money is very low right now. If you were looking to grow a business or do certain things, now's a good environment to get that lending and that funding. Okay. And like I said, if you had a question that you wanted on a one-on-one, you all have my email. It's up on the screen. You can feel free to send it to me. Yes, this presentation it was recorded, and barring any glitches, we will send out an email link to everybody and all attendees on it. And I'm 8 minutes over, so going once, going twice. Sold. All right. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to get this information. When you get the video link, because this will actually be a YouTube video, it may be private. You can share the link. You can watch it as many times as you want. And if you have any other questions that we didn't get to, feel free to send them. I hope you all stay safe, stay healthy. Love you all. Good seeing all of you. And we'll see you in the future. All right. Bye.